Welcome to the V. Lenore Show. Here, we will discuss lifestyle, beauty, celebrity gossip, and current events in our own way, my way, VStyle. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing? Today is, July 27th, Wednesday. It is hump day, and I'm your host, V. Lenore, and this is V. Lenore Show. So welcome to the show. And tonight, I think we're going to have a lot of fun. I think we're going to learn something new, hopefully, but I think we're going to have a lot of laughs that we probably needed because I know I had a rough day today, all right? And very long and a little rough at times. Okay. So I'm looking forward to this night, and I have been for days. And we've got some of my favorites that are on, some of my friends that are on. And so I'm super excited. And some of your special requests are here as well. All right. But first, let's say hi to everybody in the chat. Hey, December baby. Hey, Rockwell Accountability. Thank you for being here. Hey, Tweety. No, long time no see, basically, huh? Know your own worth. Thank you, my beautiful mod, for being here this evening to hold me down. Thank you very much. Hey, Sarkonos. Hey, Grace K. Hey, Cha-Cha Girl. I've been seeing these people all day long today. Hey, Fedora, my other beautiful mod. Hey, Kareem the Trucker. All right. Sarkonos, I almost feel like this show should be dedicated to you in some way because you're the one that was cheering on a lot of this, and you've had these special requests. Oh my gosh, Sarkonos is a super fan of two individuals on this panel tonight. And so Sarkonos, you better have a good question to ask at the end, all right? With that said, we're going to get started because I don't want to delay this any further. First up, I'm inviting back my friend that was here just last week, and we talked about his film, Lady Wrestler, that talked about the first female Negro wrestlers in this country, one of which happened to be my mommy. And so he was kind enough to come on last week, and we talked about that, but he also mentioned in passing pretty much that he was an author of a book called All Jokes Aside. And we'll talk to you a little bit about what All Jokes Aside was all about and why we have him here today. So with that said, once again, it's Mr. Chris Bournea. Hi, Chris.
Hey, hi, V. Thanks for having me on again.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And I have to say, I am a huge fan of you, but everyone who's going to be on the panel today. So I'm so excited to be here.
Yay, me too. And you and I aren't comedians, so I feel like you and I have like front row seats to like
Absolutely.
A great show, right?
Absolutely. I don't know, sitting in the front row at a comedy show is not always a good idea.
No, it's not.
Kind of get picked on a little bit.
That's true. Unless you know them personally and you know that they're just gonna look right over you, right?
Right.
Otherwise, it's not fun.
That's right.
So tell me, last week when you were here, we talked a little bit about All Jokes Aside, the book.
Right.
Tell us what the book was based on again.
Yeah. So All Jokes Aside, I actually wrote it with Raymond Lambert. It's actually Raymond Lambert's autobiography. Raymond Lambert is the co-founder of All Jokes Aside, the Chicago Comedy Club, with James Alexander. They started the club in the early 1990s. They were Morehouse fraternity buddies, and they decided they wanted to leave their careers in Wall Street and start a creative endeavor. So they kind of like charged up their credit cards and just kind of jumped in head first. So All Jokes Aside they call it the Motown of comedy clubs. It was a star factory in the 1990s where not only our panelists performed, but people like D.L. Hughley, Steve Harvey, Dave Chappelle, Monique, so many
Bernie
different,
Mac.
yes, Bernie Mac. So many different comedians either got their start there or performed there, and then their career just skyrocketed. So Raymond had actually turned his story about founding the comedy club into a documentary called Funny Business with a PH, because in the 90s everything was PH, Fat Farm, and
Yeah.
so the documentary did very well. It played at a lot of prestigious film festivals and got picked up by Showtime. So Raymond was interested in turning his personal story that he wasn't able to go to in depth into a book, because he grew up in poverty. His father was an alcoholic, and he really wanted to talk about how he, as a Black man, was able to not only become successful on Wall Street, but also as an entrepreneur in an industry that he had no prior experience in other than being a comedy fan. So it's Raymond's story of sort of rags to riches and triumphing over adversity to co-found the club.
Do you know how long the club stayed open?
Yeah, it was so it had different incarnations. It started out as like a sort of just a showcase that Raymond and James would do on weekends. Like they rented a space at an art gallery, and then eventually it just became so successful that they found their own space on, I believe, Wabash Avenue. And so for years, so from the early 90s to the late 90s, early 2000s, all jokes aside, was really like an institution in Chicago. It's where everybody who was African American and up and coming or even established comedian went to hone their act and to just to be among fans who would appreciate Black comedians that you wouldn't see at like a other, like Caroline's or other places that necessarily Black comedians wouldn't be the headliner.
And I would guess too, around that time, like I remember around the times that you're talking about, I was living in Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
And the Uptown Comedy Corner was one of those types of launching pad places for Black comics, as well as the Comedy Act Theater.
Yes.
And I believe they had one there as well as one in LA. They had one in Atlanta as well. So a lot of times I just know from the time that I was in Atlanta in the 90s, there was nothing like going to Uptown Comedy Corner or going to either one of those clubs and definitely feeling like you were at the best show in town. I mean, because it didn't matter who else was in town. You weren't going to get a better show than what was going to happen at that comedy club, because the greats were right there. And they all, when they came to town, they all wanted to be in the comedy club too for a good show, because you always knew you were going to bump into somebody there.
Right. In Columbus, Ohio, here where I'm based, we had the Comedy Stop, founded by Andrew Ford, a well-known comedian here in the Midwest region. Mm-hmm. And like you said, it was a place where you knew you were always going to get a good show, sort of like the Apollo, where singers know they have to bring their A game or the hook is going to come out. At a Black comedy club, you really, really have to bring your A game, because it's not. And actually, a couple of comedians talked about this in the Funny Business documentary about All Jokes Aside, that, white audiences sometimes will applaud out of politeness, but Black people are like, okay, I got all dressed up. I'm sitting here paying the 2-drink minimum. So you better step it up with your A game. So that's, right. You're playing in the big leagues when you're performing at a club like that.
Yes. Well, with that said, I'm going to bring up two guys that are here with me every month, and they've committed to be on my panel whenever we have different, hot topics and stuff that we're discussing. This month, I lucked out. It just happens to be comedy. So I'm going to have these two guys come up, and I've been knowing both of these gentlemen for more than 20 plus years. So I want to have them up now. First and foremost, I want to have Mr. Sherm Golden come up. Hey, Sherman. And then I'm going to have Mr. Derrick Muhammad come up. Oh, and by the way, Sherman is, so y'all in the chat, let me just warn you now, Sherman's mic is doing something real weird and crazy, okay? So when he's talking, the rest of us have to mute, and when, vice versa, child. So he probably was trying to say hi when he came out here, but forgot he was
on mute.
Yeah, I know. Okay. With that said, I'm going to ask you, Sherman, first of all, do me a favor. I want you to tell us a little bit about what it was like in the 90s in Atlanta. When I met you at Uptown Comedy Corner.
Right.
And you were hosting a lot then, especially then. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like trying to break into the business back then around that time.
Well, back then it was only a few comedians. You can count them on your hand, but now there's like 2,000 comedians.
Oh, hold on. Let me say this.
What?
See if it's not echoing.
I know. I told you I fixed it.
Okay.
I had my grandson come in and look at it.
Your grandson fixed it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, but the 90s hit it off for everybody. You know, the 90s, the comedy was like new, you know, and everything was like a shock, you know, stuff you wouldn't hear, you know, on TV, you could hear at a black comedy club, you know. And I used to do, all jokes aside, at least 3 times a year. That's what I was
going to ask you.
What? Oh my God! Ain't nothing like Chicago comedy. Now Atlanta is Atlanta, but Chicago, woo, Lord, it's a different kind of comedy.
Now, Sherman, you said something that's not exactly true. You said in the 90s, comedy was new. It wasn't new, but it was new maybe to have as many black comics probably.
Right, black comics, right.
At that time, you know, we hadn't really seen so many, I would say. Yeah. I don't feel like.
The crazy thing about it, the clubs that the black comedians are doing now, they wouldn't even put them in there.
Right.
Believe me, I was one of the few black comics that could do Funny Bone, Punchline, you know, improvs, clubs like that. They're like mainstream clubs, you know, that are booking all black acts now. You know, back then they would tell the black comics, if you told them you was on Def Jam, they would not book you. So I used to tell them I was on HBO. I didn't say Def Jam.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Just say you were on HBO.
Oh, exactly.
Wow. So the white comedy clubs didn't want you there because why? What do you think?
They said your humor was too blue. They wouldn't say it was black. They said your humor is too blue. Yeah.
Dark, huh? And
yeah. I'm telling you, me, Sinbad, George Wallace, who else? This guy named Lester Bibbs, Henry Welch. There was probably like some of the black guys that they would book.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Now, them clubs would be shut down if it wasn't for black comedy.
Okay.
Believe me. Yeah.
Now, Derrick, you on the other hand, you didn't launch a comedy career until what, the last 10 years or so?
10 years ago. Years? Like 10 years ago. Wait, no. 09. When is 09?
Okay.
09. Okay. That's when I started. But I didn't get good until probably like 12. It took a long time to get good. I sucked bad earlier on. You know what I mean? And before the pain of being booed and heckled off stage.
Right.
But if you can get past that, you good to go. If you can't get past that, go back to the post office.
Right. Well, let me ask you, you didn't have that same sort of platform really to work from. You had to work from the white club, like here in Columbus, Ohio, which is where you were at the time when you launched your career. We had one club. Well, we had 2, right? We
Comedy Stop.
But that's the 2. Yeah. That's the second one. That's the one.
Yeah.
You know, the funny thing is, Anna shut down Comedy Stop, but when I started back, he had opened it back up for round 2. And I was lucky enough to go in there and groom myself and open up for some of the major headliners who were coming through, like Marcus Combs, Tony Roberts was coming through there, Sean, Damon Williams, and it was quite a few people. Cool Bubba Ice and brothers Howie Bell. You know, what I did was I started going to white open mics and getting that work in, so I could do white rooms and black rooms like Sherman. I didn't know. I just did it because the brothers, you know, like you couldn't get in the Funny Bone. I auditioned a couple times, and after I got past Dave, then he started letting me come in and doing some open, you know, some guest spots and stuff like that. Yeah. But then after a while, I just started having my own room and booking comedians myself once a month out in, off of 161. I became a promoter. I just became my promoter because I got our way. Right. I traveled all through the state and I won contests. Actually, I won the backstage comedy contest in Columbus when they had it. And I beat all these white boys. And I was like, wow. They mamas voted. But I was peak condition then. I was in peak condition. So when I left to go to LA, I was ready, you know, but I hadn't been on stage since, you know, the pandemic, and I've been really doing my film thing. But I can't even compete with these comedians you got on the panel right now. The experience is too strong. You know?
Well, okay, so look, we've got these men up here, and these are two men that are here all the time, but I am happy, and you know I always like to balance out the energy, right?
Right.
Especially happy when I can have some female comics that can come out here and balance this whole thing out and talk about what their experiences have been. So first and foremost, I'm going to ask the person that I've been trying to get here for ages. Okay. And she's smiling back here. I see her face. She already knows who she is. But she told me a long time ago she was coming, and I'm glad she's here tonight. So that said, someone I've been watching for years, and I actually, because I've been able to see how she interacts on social media, I feel like I know her personality a little bit too. And I feel like she's a lot more well-rounded than a lot of people consider entertainers to be, but all of you all are. So with that said, I want to introduce the smart, the beautiful, the actress, the comedian, Miss AJai Sanders.
Yes.
I admitted, AJai, that you were coming here, that after I spoke to you that first time and you said, yes, I'll do it. And I was like, yay. Yes. And I admitted that you were coming out here. And when I tell you there's somebody in the chat right now who is like a huge fan of yours and this next young lady I'm going to ask of too. But yes, so I just want to say welcome. And we're so
Thank you. Thank you so much. And hi, gentlemen. How are you? Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here. I appreciate it.
No, we are happy to have you. And then with that also stated, I'm going to invite someone who I am just getting to know. And when I asked Sherman, I said, Sherman, can you name a couple of women that I could ask? And he named 2 women, and I got them both here tonight too as well, just so you know. So I'm going to start with the person I spoke with today, and I said, please, if you could come today, because somebody's in the hospital and acting like he may not even make it. So can you come? And she said, yes, I'll come. So with that said, that's Miss Karen Kennedy.
Oh, yay.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
And then last but not least, oh my gosh, Sarkonos, your wish is my command. I have the beautiful, the extremely talented and funny Miss Melanie Comarcho. Yay!
Hi, everybody. Hey, everyone.
Yay. So with that said, I'm going to be really polite and professional, and I'm going to let my friend Chris ask any question to anybody you want to ask on this panel. Chris.
Well, thank you, V. So I would actually like to ask Melanie. First of all, I want to say congratulations on Boosters LA. So it's really an accomplishment to
thank you
make your own movie. So I want to ask you, what was the most fun thing about making the movie, and what was the most challenging thing? I'm sure you have a whole list of things, but what are some of the most fun and challenging things?
I guess the fun part was the party bus. Oh God, we had so much fun filming the party bus scene, you know, where the stripper comes on and all my girls are there, and the stripper is way too rough. And I'm like, look, everybody on this bus is over 40. Slow your roll, sir. This is not the regular strip club. Somebody gonna pull a muscle. That was the hardest. That was the funnest part. The most challenging, really. The most challenging scene, there's a scene where I'm talking to my mom and over Christmas. And that's actually a picture of my mom, who is no longer with us. And my coach is like, just talk to it like it's your mom. Like you talk to your mom when the cameras ain't rolling. And so that was really hard, talking about how much I miss her during the holiday seasons. In the film, I'm an only child and my mom is gone. And so I'm by myself. So that was the most challenging part for me.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, yes.
Well, look, I want to ask everybody on the panel the same question. There's like 3 of them in particular that I want to start with. That's why I wanted to give Chris a couple of chances to get his out. So, Chris, you don't have another question you want to throw out there to anybody?
I would like to ask AJ, so have you ever encountered sexism in the comedy industry? It's such a man's game. And I always hear, okay, I guess that's the answer right there.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
right.
can't imagine.
Where did that come from? Right.
Right. Duh.
Well, so let me just share a little. So when you guys were talking about the beginning of the comedy explosion, let me just say that I was actually a part of that.
Right.
And I was 19 years old, and I got my start at the Comedy Act Theater, opening up for Robin Harris.
Yeah.
And then I was also honored enough to open the Comedy Act Theater in Atlanta, where I first saw Chris Tucker. Angela Means had taken her first step onto a comedy stage, and Jonathan Slocum was there, Rex Garvin, you know, and all the guys that you guys named earlier. Like I worked with them, you know, and rubbed elbows with them, and really enjoyed their comedy and learned so much. And so when Derrick was talking about how it took him 3 years, like I really, I think it was about the same time, 2.5, 3 years for me to really get it together, because not too much longer after I started was when Def Jam was debuted, and they came down and auditioned us, and I got on. And then after my Def Jam aired, I was also had auditioned for A Different World. And so that was the same week that my Def Jam aired, was the same week. I think my Different World episode aired like that Thursday, and I think Def Jam came on that Saturday or Sunday.
Wow.
Or Sunday. So after that is when instantly my world changed, and I started going on the road, and I went all over the world and across this country, like within that same couple of years, because of those 2 things. And so, yes, I've experienced sexism. Not sexism. What do you mean? Like in terms of not wanting me to work? Not giving me the work.
Yeah, sort of like not being taken seriously, or.
Oh yeah, I still struggle with that. But you know, and it's all you know, and I know a lot of the other 2 ladies can say the same. You know, they don't take women seriously at all. I mean, I remember I bumped into Joan Rivers when I was at Carlos and Charlie's one night on Sunset, and I was so starstruck by her, and I was like, "Hi, Miss Rivers, how are you?" And blah 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 blah. And I don't know what I said, but I remember telling her, "I'm a stand-up comedian too, and I really love you," and da da da. And so she was like, "Oh, darling, you'll never make it."
Oh my God! Really?
She said, "You'll never make it because you're too
Wow!
Wow! Girls will never be funny." Yeah. She goes, even if you are funny, they will never think you're funny. And so just be prepared for that. I just froze, and then I thought to myself, "Watch me, bitch!" Like that's exactly what I said in my head. And so I know that for she had never seen me either. And so with that, when I was at the Comedy Act Theater, all I had were men to work with. You know what I mean? There was like me, Stacey McLean, and Myra J every now and then there was Monica Floyd, and I think Kim Travares. And that was it. Everybody else were men. Joe Torre, Sinbad came through, Arsenio came through, all the Wayans brothers, especially Damon, he came through. So we had to really step our game up every single Thursday and Friday night. Otherwise, we would get swept off stage. And so Robin Harris alone was something to, Ricky Harris was there, like Louis Dix, like there was nothing, Tommy Davidson, Martin Lawrence. That was the regular rotation. So I learned literally from the best by studying the best and working with the best. So, so sexism, yes, I had to really fight through that and be taken seriously. But I knew how to do comedy like a dude, like I in heels with makeup and lipstick. But I was like, I want to make men laugh. So that was my biggest goal that I needed to achieve. And I thought if I can make Black men laugh, I got them. So that just took me all over the world, you know, and I experienced something very interesting with Andrew Ford too. Like when I worked with him, It's a long
Don't
story.
we all? But I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Who hasn't?
Did I say that out loud?
Yeah, but basically
Yeah.
that was a very interesting week.
I was
But,
there as a guest.
You
I
were?
was in the audience that night you cussed him out. I'll never forget that.
You saw that,
So
Derrick?
whatever you say, I'm gonna verify because I was there that night you cussed his ass out.
I did.
Wow.
Well, let me say it didn't happen right away. The thing is he had booked, he just tried to play me small.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was trying to save money and he was trying to put me up at his house. And I was like, bro, this is how I work. I'm a professional. And so then he was like, well, all that's open is a Motel 6. I was like,
What?
You do know I'm on
He was
CTV,
hoping something else
right?
was
You
going to
do
be
know.
open, AJ. Trust
Wow.
me. He was hoping something else was going to be open that night. Trust
Well,
me.
of course he was. And he's not the first or the last one to try. And and I'm flattered on some level, but at the same time, I'm like, bro, I'm here to work. And so he already knew it, and that boundary was already set. But anyway, he put me at the Motel 6, and I said, and I was offended, but I said, you know what? I'm gonna take it to the stage.
Wait a minute. He put you at the Motel 6 for real? No.
It was either he kept. Well, it's a long story. Anyway, end of the weekend, he got mad because I kept talking about him. He turned my mic off, and I was like, "I'm from the theater, darling. I can say this a cappella. I can do this without a
Wow.
Asha Smith and I were working together that weekend, and so then at the end he refused to pay me, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere until I get my money. Then he goes to his office, he takes out a gun, and so then Tasha was like, "Get that bitch your money! Get that bitch your money!" I felt the support, but I was a little offended at that. I'm like, wow.
Wow.
So it was an interesting weekend, but I made it out alive, thank God. And
oh man,
it was a very wild weekend. That's just one of the many stories I have that I'm going to actually save for my book. So
I was going to say you need to write a memoir.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've almost like sexually assaulted, like the whole thing. It's just crazy.
Wow.
So yes, to say the least, I've experienced sexism on many levels. But I made it out. I mean, and I, not just from promoters, but also from management, and
comedians.
Comedians, especially, well, not really. I wouldn't say sexism. I mean, they'll just kind of try you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then
that's all of them.
Be like, fuck you, go sit the fuck down. You just cuss them out, and then they be all right. Now you're their sister.
Exactly.
So that they're easy because we're brother and sister, and y'all know we're comrades. But they'll try. But then if you know that they know that that's a shut door, then they know. Just be.
I have never had a problem. I let them know from day one what's going on. Every man that's a man is going to try. Every man's going to try.
Right.
If they think there's any possibility, and you don't have to be beautiful, you could have an eye in the center of your forehead, and they gonna try to come and hit that shit. So, every comic, every woman, and every business, whether it's comedy or Kentucky Fried Chicken, there's gonna be some type of sexual innuendos at work. Sometimes the shit's funny, but then when to. Okay, that's not so funny no more. Right. So the 90s was the best thing ever happened to me. I love the 90s. I wasn't around when AJai and them, I didn't start till 92. So when I started, everything happened for me from the beginning. I was doing the Comedy Act Theater. That's where I started, LA.
Yeah.
And then I had to audition to do this competition in Oakland. And the people from Def Jam was there. I got a standing ovation at the audition. I didn't make it out the first round, but they saw me at that audition round, and I booked the Def Comedy Jam. I didn't even know what Def Jam was. I did not have cable, so I had never seen it. I'm married with 2 kids. Ain't no money. We got to pay child care and rent. Right. Ain't no cable money.
Right.
We a young new couple, and cable wasn't in it. We couldn't do no Fire Sticks back then. So, we'd have to go over somebody's house with the kids to watch the Def Jam. It just wasn't working. So when I taped, and then as soon as I came off stage, they said, "You're on tour." So I toured with Def Jam for probably 6 years, and then Chris Tucker for 3, and Martin Lawrence for 4, and just they kept popping from I toured all. Maxwell called me in '99. I couldn't 100 cities with Maxwell at the heat of his career. I couldn't believe it.
I saw you in Columbus, Ohio with Maxwell in 1999. I remember it distinctly.
Yes.
I was going through a divorce at the time, and it was one of the best shows I've ever been to. Both
that was at the
you and him.
It was amazing.
That was at the
I did 30 minutes, and then he did an hour and a half or 2. It was so fun.
Awesome. Now,
so I love the 90s.
What were you saying, Derrick?
Okay, that was at the Newport in Columbus, right?
No, they were downtown.
Oh, I saw it for $5 at the Newport.
No, I saw
you didn't see me with Maxwell. I was with Maxwell's show she talking about. And
yes.
You wasn't seeing him for no $5.
They were at the Palace. Mm-hmm. Karen Kennedy, you are now. How long have you been in comedy?
I've been doing comedy for about 5 years.
Okay. So what these ladies have just described, have you experienced any of that? Sexism, sexual anything, sexual assault, anything, any kind of sexual anything. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I come from the corporate professional speaking, and I transitioned over to comedy, doing corporate events and private events and community events and stuff like that. So I represent a different type of stand-up comedian here on this panel. So thank y'all for having me today.
How is that different? That's not different.
Right. I don't get it.
You just perform to a different audience. That's all.
Well, I say that it's
not necessarily, because I've done all those shows as well, the corporates and
the reason why I was saying just different, as in these types of events versus the comedy clubs, because there is a great debate that is always happening about any type of comedy that happens outside of a comedy club. You guys know that. So I'm always, kind of in the middle of that. When I hear that type of conversation, I don't really get into it because, like you all said, comedy is comedy. Whether, you're on the street, you're at an event, you're at a comedy club. But sexism happens, across all genres and industries. So I've definitely experienced it with promoters, other comedians, and the like. I just try to just have all my, ducks in a row where I don't have to deal with that kind of stuff. Just make sure that the contracts are straight, the communication is what it is, go in, do my thing, and then get the hell up out of there.
Right.
Now, we just had a discussion about women in comedy, and but let me ask, what, with these days and times, people are extremely sensitive, more so than ever. But comedy has always been that place where you could talk about anything, right? And it was sort of like, this was the one free space where you could at least make a joke about just about anything or anyone, from any background. I bring that up to say, Chris, one of the people that you said that you actually interviewed when you were writing the book, All Jokes Aside, was Flame Monroe.
Yes,
now,
one of the first well-known Black trans comedians.
So did he say how, and I'm saying he because I even went back and looked at the pronouns, and he goes by he or she. So did he mention that maybe he encountered any type of harassment because of his sexuality?
Yeah, he said it wasn't like, it wasn't severe type of harassment, but it was, being ostracized and not feeling accepted by the other comedians in the green room, at All Jokes Aside. And I think I shared this the last time we spoke. He said he would always have these comebacks like, I'm more woman than you'll ever have and more man than you'll ever be. So he just kind of took it in stride and, didn't let people bully him. But he said definitely he felt like, an outside, because back in the 90s, who was talking about, we still use the word transvestite back then. It wasn't, it wasn't like how it is now where, we talk about all this whole spectrum of sexuality. So definitely he encountered some discrimination.
So I love, all jokes aside, for the record. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I loved working there. That was one of my favorite clubs on the planet. And I had worked, by that time, by the mid 90s, I had probably pretty much worked everywhere, including the mainstream comedy clubs. And I'm telling you, all jokes aside, there was just something really magical about that club. And I mean, including the Comedy Act Theater. You know, it seemed like it took the magic that the Comedy Act Theater had, that started out with, and just brought it to Chicago. And one only resentment I have against Raymond Lambert, and that is he always booked me in January.
In Chicago.
I'm like, why don't you please bring me in the spring? And so one time I did come in the springtime, and I got a chance to go to the Taste of Chicago, and that was just, I love Chicago. I love it. It's from that experience, experience. So I'm grateful.
What about Mary? Mary used to work, right? Her, Mary and Ray.
So Mary was
like Mary.
She was like the enforcer, from what I heard.
Mary was the manager over there at All Jokes.
Right.
You know, All Jokes used to have
she didn't play. You went over your time, and you got docked.
Melanie, they had a traffic light.
Man, she didn't play.
When that light hit red, it was docking you $100 a minute.
What?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
DL got the record. DL got the
record. Know how to get off the stage.
DL, when DL seen the red light, he did an extra 30 minutes, and that was $100 a minute.
And see, and the line is outside around the block waiting for the next show. So when you go over, that messes up everything. People got an attitude when they do get in there. They had to do something.
Why would he want to dock himself that much money?
He didn't care.
Girl, you don't know how many shows I did with Maxwell where after 11 o'clock, it's union. You paying double.
Yeah.
We was in there till 11:30. The band hot as hell talking about we could have used that money. Maxwell kept on singing. So some people just, when they feeling it, they feeling it.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing you can do.
Okay.
But just think about, all jokes aside, and that was the era before social media. A lot of it was just word of mouth and the radio. I know they did radio spots, and Raymond would go on the morning. He would take the comedians on the morning radio show.
Yes,
I did.
Yeah, I loved it. But
they had George Wilburn, and he was already on the radio.
Right. And George was the host. And what was that thing George used to do with his hand?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Chris real quick. So is it true that Bernie Mac didn't do All Jokes Aside because he was committed to doing B's Kitchen?
What I heard, what Raymond said, was that Bernie did do All Jokes Aside, but he also did B's Kitchen. And Raymond was hot about that because, in Raymond's words, B's Kitchen was, owned by a white lady, and it was like subpar. You know how you were saying everything in All Jokes Aside was, it was like this magical environment. That's because Raymond has a Wall Street background. He went to business. He has an MBA. He went to business school. So he was all about running the business. But B's Kitchen was just like, your mama's kitchen that they're putting on a show. So I believe Bernie Mac did do All Jokes Aside, but he also did B's Kitchen, and Raymond was not happy about.
I know the B's Kitchen was their competition too, as well, because they packed in the room as well, right? Yeah,
right.
So it was a white club, but it was
white owned
club owner, but it was still black comedy.
Right.
Yeah, that's tricky. Okay.
And Def Jam set black comedy, put it back on the map again. Put it like that. Once they saw Bernie Mac and AJai and all the other comics on the Def Comedy Jam, the Adele's, everybody wanted to see that. Oh, I don't believe she said that. Oh God, where they at?
So
it was so many tours. It was ridiculous. Everybody put a tour on that was say they was Def Jam, but they weren't.
Yeah,
they was just,
that's true.
There's one Def Jam comic on this show. Right. The rest of them wannabes.
Yeah.
So I got a question. I want us to go around for each of you. Tell me, who was your greatest comedy inspiration?
Ooh.
And who is the one person, whether it's that great comedy inspiration or someone else that you actually met and gave you the best comedy advice? So we'll start with Melanie.
Oh, Okay, I guess it was Richard Pryor. I don't know if you guys got a chance to see the documentary Fat Tuesdays at the Comedy Store.
Mhm.
It's on Amazon. Guy Tori put it together. But I was the only female host that they had in there.
Mhm.
So I'm doing a show one night and I'm nervous. I think I'm hosting. So I went up and I did the first set and I did 7 minutes. But it was a hot 7 minutes. And when I came off, everybody was like, you should have did more time. You should have did more time. You should have stayed up there. You need to go back. I'm hosting. So I'm going back in a minute. But everybody telling me I need to do more time. And so I'm kind of feeling funny. I'm walking down the stairs at the Comedy Store. And at the bottom of the stairs is Richard Pryor. And he says, always leave them wanting more. I lit back up because I was, really? I'm sorry. I didn't do it. And then Richard, the best advice ever, always leave them wanting more. You don't want them to say, God damn, she ain't finished yet.
Well, who could tell? Who? I don't think anybody else is going to have a better person that they're going to be able to name. Because if that's not the king, I don't know who is.
I don't either. And for him to tell me that, you're right, Richard.
All right, AJ, you're next.
Well, there's been several people that has given me lots of advice. The first time I remember at being at the Comedy Act Theater, I gotten off stage. I had a really great set, and it was early on. And I got off stage, and there was two men in the back of the club, William Wilson and Brad Sanders, and they were congratulating me and patting me on the back. And I was like, "Oh man, I forgot two jokes. And Brad Sanders said, "Well, that's okay. That's okay. You can do it, tomorrow night or whatever." And he said, "Listen, if you give it all away, you can't sell it." And I was like, good point. So the next person that gave me some great advice was Damon Wayans, when he said, you care too much. One day you're going to have to stop giving a damn. Next person was Sinbad. He gave me tons of advice about the road. And when we worked on A Different World together, he would be like, "Where you going this weekend? Where you going?" I'm going to be in, St. Louis. And where you going to be at? So he was just always on the road. He's been on the road since 1988. Anyway, so hardest working man in comedy. Anyway, so he told me, he gave me a lot of advice about being on the road and how to familiarize myself with the city and, and how do I make friends with the audience, in a foreign land. Every place you go, it's going to be a foreign country almost. He said, so understand and find out the culture of that city. And so, you do that by going to the malls and finding out what the local slang is and all that kind of stuff. And the most popular streets and what the brothers are doing and what they wearing and how they wear their hair. Just all these little nuances and details you get a chance to understand. So then you get a chance to really embrace, the audience will embrace you and you get familiar with each other. So that was the winning ticket for me, because I was on the road so much, especially right after Def Jam, that I took that everywhere I went.
And who was your greatest inspiration before getting into comedy?
Well, I didn't. So that's a long story in itself, but I'm just going to have to say Robin Harris, because he's the one that actually volunteered to mentor me, because he kept saying, look, you got stage presence, you just need material. So he taught me how to write. Eddie Murphy also taught me how to write too. That's another twisty, windy story in itself too, but he would come to the Comedy Store all the time and, and invite us up to his house. And he Eddie always told me, he was like, stop dancing. Because I danced on Def Jam. He was like, why do you dance? And I go, well, because I'm nervous, Eddie. I don't know what to, I don't know what to do with myself. I'm so nervous. He says, just stop dancing. And I said, Eddie, I'm gonna keep dancing. He was like, I don't want you to dance. Stop dancing. I was like, I'm gonna dance, Ed. So that was our biggest rip that we had. So now everybody dance before when the music come on. Right? Sure do. So, yeah. So Eddie's probably really annoyed at everybody who dances. But he told me, he was like, don't stop doing that. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it. I like it. So.
Okay, Karen, how about you? Your greatest inspiration and the best advice.
I really, really enjoyed Eddie Murphy all the way, all the time. I could just never go wrong watching any of his stuff. And I'll actually say that the person who gave me the best comedy advice is right here on this panel, which is Melanie Comarcho. She was so she was so gracious. When I first started doing comedy, we exchanged numbers. We met at the Apollo Theater initially, and then I saw her perform at Atlanta Comedy Theater. And when I called her, I asked her, how do you keep your comedy personalized? You know, keep people from stealing the jokes. Do you remember this conversation, Melanie?
What I tell you?
And she said to personalize your jokes so much that nobody can steal your comedy.
You?
Yeah.
Right. Personalize the joke to you, your personal experience, that they can't take that.
Correct.
And it's worked, and I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate how, you know, they say don't meet your heroes sometimes, because you can meet that comedian that you were inspired by, and they might be a jerk. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I've walked Melanie through everything that she's talked about, all her credits. And when I met her, she was so gracious. She gave me her number. When I called her, you know, she gave me her time and great advice. And so, I mean, it's really awesome. And to come full circle to be on a panel with her, I mean, you know.
Wow. You trying to make me cry over here. You're not going to do it. I'm not going to let you do it.
And the cool part is the number was real. It was her real number, actually. It
Yeah.
I give anybody my number, and I tell them all, I'm not going to change my number. I'm going to block you. You won't be able to call this.
Right.
If you start acting up, you will be blocked.
Right.
The phone will continue to ring, but you will never get through. So, this is 2022. We can block people now.
I heard that. I thought that's right. Derrick, you go ahead.
Man, you know, when I first started, because I broke up with my ex-fiance, and I couldn't afford to. So I started going to tell jokes, right? And I sucked real bad. But I'm the kind of guy is that I'll learn, like, I study a history of a thing. So I went all the way back to, like, Mom's Mabley and Pig Meat Martin and just worked my way up. And I had to I like intellectual shit, so I kind of gravitated towards Dick Gregory. I like Chris Wilson, you know, Paul Mooney, of course, Richard Pryor, Eddie. You know, and I'm more of a Chappelle fan. I used to love Chris Rock, but I'm more of a Chappelle fan. And I don't know why Kevin Hart gave that goat to Chris Rock in front of Dave Chappelle. I got a fucking problem with that.
Wow, that was cold.
Anyway, so I think so Chappelle is probably like the benchmark for me right now because of his social stance. He's like the Muhammad Ali, being able to turn around money and come back and get it years later just on principle and shit, and not sell his ass and wear dresses and all that shit. So I love that aspect, especially being an older man that I am. So, but the best advice I got was from Beth Payne. And I asked her,
I love Beth.
I forgot about Beth. How's she doing?
So I asked, I said, you know, I'm starting out, what you suggest? She said, stage time, stage time, stage time. And I took that to heart. And I would go do comedy 3 to 4 nights a week, sometimes 2 nights a set. And I remember one year I wasn't getting booked. This is when I first started. I was like, I remember I made a pledge New Year's Eve. I was like, fuck that, I'm gonna do my own show. And I started doing my own show, and I started getting booked, you know, so I started booking a show. I got the door, invited all my friends, hosted the set, and I was able to polish my act, and it ended up spreading and building that camaraderie. So, you know, that's where I'm at right there. But I love stand-up. It's refreshing. It's the hardest individual sport in the business, though.
Yeah.
The hardest.
Eddie
you
Murphy's
have to buy your own self, and you better bring it, or they will let you know.
Yes, sir. Eddie
not
Murphy says it is the purest form of entertainment.
Yes.
For sure.
And let me say this. I remember when I was at the Funny Bone and I got booed off stage by every nigga in the city of Columbus, Ohio.
Oh my God. That's gotta be
Women I
horrible.
slept with booed me. Women I wanted to sleep with booed me. Everybody fucking booed me. And I was cool. But it was the best and worst thing happened because I was 6 months into it. And I didn't prepare. And I sucked. So I went back for 6 months later because it took me a minute to heal my wounds. But I vowed, I was the last nigga to leave that place. And I said, I'm coming back to count for you bitches. And a year later, I went back and I killed that shit and I started getting my work in after
There you go.
It tests you.
Yeah.
It ain't
Can't give up because you got booed.
I advise you keep on moving. You know, tell jokes on the internet. Don't do that shit. It hurt your feelings.
What about you, Sherman? Stop.
Wow. Y'all know Buddy Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Buddy.
My man. That's my guy. When I first started doing comedy, at the Comedy Act Theater, they started an improv group. And Michael Williams brought Buddy Lewis to Atlanta to teach improv. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
He taught us so much, you know, but I used to pull him to the side and just ask questions, you know, and I was like, man, I want to learn how to write, because he was writing skits for us. And like off the top of his head, he would just come up with a skit. You know, I was like, man, how you do that? Man, he said, I'm a writer. I said, I want to learn how to write. He said, well, I'm here all week. He said, come down every night and I will teach you how to write. And he taught me how to write jokes, how to present them, and how to become the character that you're talking about, and all that. So that's my dude.
I love
That's my
it.
dude.
All right.
Yeah.
Who did you grow up being inspired by, Sherman?
Nobody.
Nobody? When did you decide that you were going to do comedy for the first time?
My mistake. I was in the club one night and I didn't know about open mic. And Rex Garvin was the host. Now that, oh my God. Now that, if anybody inspired me, it would have been Rex, because he was the first comedian I seen do.
He was a beast.
Wasn't he? Oh my God. So it was open mic night and wasn't nobody funny. So I was like, man, these guys aren't funny. So Michael Williams was standing behind me. He said, well, we have open mic every Tuesday. If you can come and try your luck. I said, I can do that. I said, I can go up there and not be funny. I said, I can do that. You know, and I went up there. The first, they gave me like 5 minutes, if you can last 5 minutes. But I did about 3 minutes. And when they started laughing, that's when I got off. He was like, man, you got it. I said, nah, man. I said, I can be, you know, not funny. So he said, well, I'm doing the improv group. You know, you want to get in the improv? I said, what's improv? He said, just come back. You know, I got a guy coming from LA. He going to teach improv. I said, all right. And I came back, and that's when I met Buddy Lewis. And that's when I learned everything I needed to learn. And believe me, the guy's a genius.
He's the truth.
And look at you now, touring with Chris Tucker. Look at you now.
But you know what the crazy thing about it? I used to take Chris home. Chris is still in high school. When we used to come out of the Comedy Act Theater, all the buses stopped running, ain't no trains running. And I lived by the airport. He lived like way on the other side of town, and wouldn't nobody take him home. You know? And I was like, man.
Oh, wow.
And I already said, I said, man, these streets ain't for you. I said, come on, man, let me take you home. I already knew it. I said, this ain't where you need to be, dude. So I used to take him home. You know?
So Sherman, did we meet when we were down there, or was that after?
we met at the Comedy Act Theater. Michael Williams had y'all staying at that little hotel where Chris Charles and everybody stayed in that one little. Yeah.
Okay. When you said it, I was like, I know I met him at some point.
Yeah, because I used to take you back to the hotel. It wasn't a hotel; it was like a little apartment complex.
It was like a condo.
It was like a condo, and Chris Charles used to stay in the condo.
That was the first
I ain't never stayed in no
condo.
I remember no condo.
That was my first paying gig ever, and so I didn't know that I could say no to a condo. But I'm gonna tell you, after that, I never stayed at a condo again.
Right, especially that one.
Yeah.
I never stayed in no condo. You better give me a hotel.
Yeah.
But I understood that was. We also understood that what Michael was trying to do, though.
Yeah.
You know, we also understood that he was really trying to make put his footprint.
Oh, that was when it was new.
Yeah, when it's new. Yeah.
We opened the club. We broke the ribbon on the thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, me, Joe Torre, and Chris Charles were the first three people to step up, get on the stage. And so we understood that it was all fresh and it was brand new. And listen, it was 1990, right? Something like that.
Yeah. 1990.
Next weekend that Robin Harris passed away.
Wow.
And he had called me up because I asked him, I said, do you think I should do it? He said, yeah. He goes, he paying you, right? I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, go do that. He goes, I'm gonna be in Chicago this weekend. And when I come back, I want you to open up for me in Cincinnati, because that's my next city that I'm gonna go to. So that night I called him up because he was in Chicago, but I called him that when I got off the plane, when we landed from Atlanta, to let him know how good I did, because he was like my father figure, right? So I reported back with everything that I did, whether it was good or bad. And so I called him, no answer, called him, no answer. And then some random little girl walked up to me. She goes, "You from the Comedy Act Theater?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Robin Harris just died."
Wow.
And I said, I got my bag in my hand. I'm at the phone booth and I'm like, okay, she's crazy. So let me call Lewis and find out. So I called Lewis, and so I heard it that way. And it just my whole world came crumbling down within like seconds. So yeah.
Let me tell you, girl, because I came to the Comedy Act Theater in LA as a fan. A friend of mine said, "Let me let you see this guy, Robin Harris." So I saw him. He was hilarious. So I took my husband back to see him another day. And then I took my co-workers to see him. And when I went back this time, he had died. So the line wasn't wrapped around the block, because I told everybody, get there early because the line be long, and wasn't no line. And inside telling jokes, this is how I started doing comedy, because GL and Joe was on the stage and they were not funny to me. I was like, "Oh, I want my money back. I came to see Robin Harris. You should have told me he wasn't here when you took my $20. And so my friends that was with me said, "Oh, shut up. $50, say you can't do no better." They put the 50 on the table. Michael wasn't there. I went and got Sharon.
Yeah.
And I talked about their ass for 10 minutes, my coworker. And she was like, "Can you come back tomorrow? Can you come back tomorrow?" I was like, "What?" That's how I started doing comedy, because Joe and GL was not funny to me. I was like, "Oh no, I want my money back."
That is funny.
Well, I didn't start doing stand-up comedy voluntarily. I just started sneaking in with my friend, because we were two broke girls in college. And so Michael knew we were sneaking in, but we thought we was getting away with something. And so then one night he called us at the front door, and I was like, "Hey, hi." And so he said, "Hey, so you know how he is." And he takes he said, "We got to get the show started, and Lewis is late." He's looking at his watch. "Lewis is late." He said, "What do you do?" I said, "Oh, well, because I was really a dancer, I said, "I'm a dancer and I'm an actress. I'm a stand-up." And I said, "I'm a singer." So he was like, "Well, can you go open the show real quick and introduce Robin? Because I got to get this show started." And I said, "Well, sure. How hard can that be?" Well, I found out. So I just died the death of a three-legged dog that night. And a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And so then he said, "Come back tomorrow." And I said, "Okay." And so I came back the next night, same thing. Died the death of a three-legged dog and nervous as a long-tailed cat with a room full of rocking chairs. So I was like, so he says, "Yeah, just keep coming next week." And so that kept happening over and over. And then that's when Robin pulled me to the side and he was like, "Look, you get on stage, you're going to have to say something. You put your feet on that stage, you're going to have something to say." And he goes, "You just need some material." And so I was like, "Oh, well, where do I get that?"
Where do I get that?
So
where'd you buy that at?
Yeah, how can I get a 6-pack? Well, he said, "Here's my number, and I'll teach you how to write." So that's how that all like started and stuff. So anyway, it was just a trip out. So then like 9 months later, I did a rap, and Stacey McLean had written for me, and it just all came together. And so then he started complaining. He was like, "You know what? She's taking too long on stage now." I had like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. He's like, then he started "You're taking too long." And so that meant because that's what Michael said. He was like, "That means you're getting good." So "Okay." And so then one night, I was about to go on stage to introduce him, and he pulled me back. He said, wait. He goes, I don't want you opening up for me no more." And I said, "Well, why?" And I thought I was in trouble. So he goes, "You know what? I think you're ready." He goes, "Tonight I'm going to bring you up."
Wow.
And that was when I officially became, a comedian.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
He was, he was. It was a really. I'm telling you, like it was a really amazing experience, because there was Robert Townsend, Partners in Crime was hot. Then Eddie Murphy Raw came out, and then one thing just kept leading to the next, and I did Evening at the Improv, and so like this whole thing was just bubbling, and it just one day just spilled over, and then Def Jam just like set it over the top, and so I was just grateful to be somewhere in the mix of that gumbo of a wonderful stand-up. It was amazing.
everything that you just said, so funny because all of those things sort of elevated comedy. You know, Eddie coming out and doing his movies, you know, not just his movie, but his concert movies.
Right.
You know,
Right.
those things elevated comedy, and then Def Jam elevated it for us as, you know, for Black comedians.
Comic View.
But let me say this. We're going to take a quick break only for like less than a minute. Karen has to step away, but we're going to come back and finish off the show with a quick game that I think is going to be a lot of fun. So, Karen, I hate that you can't stay for that, but I understand.
All right. Thank you guys so much. This was great. Nice to meet everyone. Good night.
Bye. Okay, we'll take one quick break and we'll be back right after this. All right. So the game that we're going to play is called Never.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Sure.
I just want to tell you, I am really jealous of your eyebrows, your whole facial, your face makeup. Like, you are just your brows are just killing the game. You are so beautiful. So I just wanted to say that. No, seriously, I've been like,
oh,
yes. Yes, ma'am. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
AJai. Wait, we lost Melanie?
She only had an hour.
You said she had an hour.
She did. That's
true.
Okay, so with that said, we're going to play this quick game and we'll be out of here, but I think it's going to be fun. So to do this, have you guys played Never Have I Ever?
No.
Is it anything like Truth or Dare?
People shit that they really telling themselves about.
Well, I mean, I've been very selective with these statements, though. Okay.
Okay.
So this is what we'll do. So I'm going to make the statement, "Never have I ever," and you all, I'm going to ask you to turn your cameras off. If you have ever done whatever it is that I've said I have never, then you're going to turn your camera on. Okay.
Oh,
right.
Lord.
All right.
Hey, well, so if I've never done it, turn the camera.
Yeah, turn this off already.
We just won't see you again.
Turn the camera off.
Yeah, so everybody turn your cameras off.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, turn your cameras off. And if you have done the thing that I say, then you're going to turn your camera on. Perfect.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Never have I ever woke up to a stranger in my bed. Sherman Golden.
Turn my camera on.
Sherman Golden, turn your camera on.
I ain't never had no stranger in my bed.
Excuse me? Oh, that's where you knew the maid. You knew the house.
She was in my room every day.
Huh?
She came and cleaned up my room.
So you knew her? Okay, so that's
no, I didn't know her, but yeah, that is right. Yeah, you're right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, turn your camera off. All right. Never have I ever been asked to lay on the casting couch. Okay. That's good.
Well, that would be me.
Oh, you did come on. Okay. You want to tell us anything about it? You don't have to tell us who or, you know, but
yes. So when I first started, I was about, I think I was well under 20 years old. I think I may have been like 18, and I had joined this, those Faces International type of things that they used to have back in the 80s, where, get discovered, Faces International. Yeah. So, so the guy that I did the audition for, and it was like thousands of us young people there. And so he's like, yeah, come back tonight at about 6:00. And here's my address in my office. And I came back to the office, and I thought there would be other actresses there, and it wasn't. It was just him. And so when I walked into the office, he had the fireplace going. He had the pull-out couch pulled out into a bed. And so he's like, "Hey, come on in." And I was like, "Oh, I forgot something in my car." And I remember my heart was pounding because I was like, okay, I knew it was going to be all bad. So I got scared. And so I said, but I was trying to stay calm. And so I said, I left something in my car. I'll be right back. And so I just kind of tipped out, but we really wanted to run out, but I just tipped out and I escaped his whatever he had planned on doing because I went straight to my dad and I was like, this guy was weird and blah, blah, blah. So that was the closest thing I'd ever come to. Somebody put me on a casting couch. I mean, it was really early on in my career. So I wasn't even acting really yet. It was just something that I thought I was interested in doing. So it was in the very beginning. So they took my $250 and that was it. It was called New Talent Enterprises. That was the name of it. And the head of that company, and the reason I felt so comfortable doing it was because the head of that company, the owner of that company was Corey Feldman's father. And how I met him was he used to come and bring his clothes to my father's dry cleaners right down the street.
Oh, okay.
So, oh yeah, you'd be perfect. Come on down. And I was like, okay. And
he's a pervert himself anyway.
One more time?
I said he's a pervert himself anyway.
Well, so that all got exposed later on. So when I heard about that, I was like, oh, that was
Yeah.
But anyway,
I just praise God that you were smart enough to, figure out how to get out of that room and that you weren't, and glad that you had a parent that was supportive enough that you could talk to and say, this happened,
Well, I didn't really tell my father because I knew that he had a lot of weapons.
Oh, right.
And so I didn't want to have blood on my hands, but because his dry cleaners was right down the street, I just went to his dry. I just went to the place, to the cleaners, and I just kind of sat around. He was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Oh, nothing." He was like, "Oh, you didn't get the audition." I was like, "No." He was like, "Oh, baby, that's okay." I never really told my dad what happened because I knew how my father was, but I just kept it to myself. Like, damn, that was weird. You know what I mean? Like, what was that?
Yeah.
So I was trying to just wrap my 18-year-old mind around that,
Yeah. Yeah. You're blessed.
But I was happy I had a place to go to get out of there. I was like, I'll be right back.
Yeah.
So,
Lord,
that was God. That was God right there.
Yes.
Wow, it sure was.
Oh, do I turn my camera back off?
Yep. Turn your camera back off. All right. Let me see. I never, okay, this one's a little racy. Have I ever been invited to a racy sex party by a celebrity friend? You don't have to.
You might as well just keep our cameras off.
You might as well keep your camera on.
For the rest of the night. Lord.
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to give us anything about it or no? If no, I'm cool.
Well, no, I mean, here's the thing. I don't know if it was a racy sex party. I know there was drugs involved as well. So I've been invited to a lot of like very, weird clandestine, like you have to kind of know what's happening. You know what I mean? So I was invited, but I never really stayed. I'll put it to you that way. So I was invited. One time I was invited to Bobby Brown's party. It was back when the Comedy Act Theater was hot. And so one of the guys came down, one of his boys came to the club. He was like, yeah, you'd be perfect. And so I went down got home and got into my tight black dress and heels and stuff. And so I get to the door. And so, and they said, yeah. And this guy looked at me up and down. He was like, what do you want? I said, well, I was invited to the party and it was real quiet. I'm like, I was waiting to hear some music and see people or whatever. And so he said, and I said, yeah, Bobby, I was invited by Bobby's, whoever his name was. Anyway, he looked me up and down and he said, baby girl, go home.
Oh,
and
he was
Wow.
And I said, okay. Literally, and I felt so offended because I didn't know, we know the stories now. I didn't know the stories back then, but
right.
He looked me up and down and he was like, girl, go home.
Yeah.
And I was like, he shut the door and I was so offended. I remember I cried on the way home, like, I'm just not pretty enough. I'm just not good enough. I can't believe they did that, you know. So I felt so rejected, but
That
now
was
I feel
God's
great.
protection, child.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
That's what that was.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, let's try this one more time. Yeah, turn it off. Let's see how this goes. Never have I ever had to fight a promoter for my money after a performance.
You know what? You should have screened. You should have went through these questions before.
Just keep your camera on.
So all three of y'all, okay, we're gonna start. Let's start with you, Sherman. What happened with you?
So many. Ooh, Lord have mercy.
Just give me
Columbus, Ohio.
what?
And crazy thing about it, I had your dad with me that night.
You had my dad with you?
Yeah.
Okay, go
He
ahead.
was at the Comedy Stop. And this fool tells me, he said, if you want something to drink, just go to the bar and get it. So I'm like, okay, free drink. So we drinking, I'm sending people drinks and, you know, I'm like the whole weekend, right? So come Sunday to get paid, he tell me I got a $225 bar tab.
Uh-oh.
I said, nigga, you told me if I want something to drink, go to the bar and get it. I said, you ain't telling me I was running no tab. You know, he said, nah, man, you was running a tab. I said, all right, man, I'll tell you what.
Oh, my.
Yeah. I said, you already got me staying in your house. I said, so if I don't get my money, I'm going to take $225 worth of shit out of your house. Simple as that.
What?
Yeah.
Damn. Did you get your money, bro?
Hilarious.
Yeah, I got my money.
Yeah.
Derrick, Muhammad, go ahead. You next.
Oh, it was just a local promoter in Columbus that, you know.
Damn. What's wrong with Columbus?
Yeah. He invited one too many comedians, promised them the money, and me and my guy, you know, was short on our bread. But my guy, old thug ass nigga, I was like, yo, get my bread. And a couple slaps later, I had my money. So it was cool though. But
Not
yeah, that was pretty much the only time. I never really had the other problems other than that.
Okay, all right.
Sometimes you gotta slap a nigga around and get.
Yeah.
I'm not Martin Luther King. I'm more Malcolm X.
You say what?
Who did you fight or at least argue with? I don't think.
No, I already told you the story of my Columbus, Ohio experience. You know, but
That's true.
Other than that, I've been really blessed because, you know, I started off, you know, working, you know, opening up for Chris Rock and Martin Lawrence and Jamie Foxx, and so the business was always handled before we even got to that city. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why I think I was so offended by what Andrew Ford had done, because, you know, I had such a smooth ride up until that point, you know, and so anyway, I mean, but for the most part, I've had pretty good experiences, you know, except for a couple times like that. But other than that, I've always had the business handled pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've been really blessed in a way.
Okay. I'm only gonna ask one more. One more. Okay. Right. Sherman, turn your camera off.
AJ, turn your camera on.
Okay.
I ain't studying you, Sherman.
Never have I ever missed a gig or any type of work assignment due to an arrest.
Oh.
Oh.
All right, Derrick, Muhammad, what happened?
I didn't pay a parking ticket, and I didn't know I had a warrant, and I had a show, and I turned right on red, and cops got me. And I said,
man.
Don't have me ask. Where were you, Derrick?
You need to get out of Columbus, man.
I know.
Quickness.
Clearly, Columbus is the problem.
And I needed that bread that night too. That would have paid the ticket I owed.
Oh my God.
Well,
That's
everybody
hilarious.
can turn the cameras back on. One last question that came from the chat. One of the people, Summer Breeze, asked, did any of you ever attend a mansion party? Well, of course, there's all kinds of mansions and folks having parties in them. So are we talking about a specific type of mansion party or?
Playboy Mansion? Is that what they mean?
Oh, is that what you mean? Playboy Mansion? Summer Breeze?
The black version of a Playboy Mansion.
No.
What'd you say? Is there one? Is it? Would you?
I never attended one. I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, with that said, that's it. I want to thank everybody for coming and thank you for doing this. I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot. Yes, Derrick. And
I
you
got
owe
one
me.
question to Chris. Chris.
Yes.
Don't I know you from when you interviewed me when I did my first movie in Columbus? And you came out to the King Library Atonement.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. My career has mostly been in journalism, including black newspapers like the Calling Post.
I knew it, man. You interviewed me when I did my first movie. I did a $6 movie, made $2,000 for trunk of my car, and he interviewed me.
Wow.
He was the newspaper of the black paper at the time.
Yeah. I worked for the Calling Post and the Columbus Post. Yep.
That's what it was. Man, all right, what's up, bro?
See, it was a full circle moment today.
Yes.
People knew each other, and it's the same.
Yeah.
It's great. It's great. So anyway, with that said, AJ, can I, in front of 38 witnesses, and and their mamas and daddies and everything, can I get you to come back for a real interview?
Yes. We're supposed to do that anyway, right?
I know. But I just want to make sure I can get you back.
You're trying to get witnesses, huh?
Yeah.
Yes. Please do. But here's the thing, you gotta hit me up on my personal cell because sometimes I don't go to my inboxes very often enough to respond in real time, or in a nice amount of time. So hit me up on my personal number.
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay, will do. With that said,
it was a pleasure meeting you, Chris.
It was great meeting you, AJ, Derrick, and well, Derrick, we know each other.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, baby.
Well, with that said, we're just going to say goodbye to everybody in the chat. Thank you guys for hanging with us today and for being patient. And I'm looking forward for the next time we get all these guys back together again. All right. Until then, have a good night, everybody. Bye.
Bye.